Okay. So I'm gonna ask you questions now about the Schoenberg estate, which you inherited after your father died, and then certainly after your mother died. Your mother died when in
Yeah,
1967, right?
yeah. But I want to start by saying that I said I wasn't going to give any credit to my children, but I didn't say that about my sister and my brother. Whatever I say about what I did in connection with my father's estate, I think I did an awful lot, but a minuscule, tiny, itty bitty amount compared to what my sister and my brother have done. They've just really devoted their lives in large part to my father. I've tried to also, but I haven't come anywhere near what they have done. So I will say that now and then go on and say the things that I've done and blow them up. I want to say first that I am very proud of what I've done, and that I think I didn't think of this before, but I think it really was a singular thing. The two things that I did, the two main things that I did, one was negotiate our agreement with the University of Southern California, and that was done. I don't think I don't know of any other gift or donation. I guess there was something that happened back east. I think it was paintings that were given, but the person lost the gift. I don't know of anything that's achieved what we've achieved in terms of a contract that we got when we gave the Schoenberg Archives to USC.
Well, before we get into that. So your mother died. You were 29 years old, right? In beginning of 1937. Larry was 4 years younger, 3 or 4 years younger. Nuria was living in Venice, Italy at that time, right, in 1967. And so you had then to decide what to do with your father's estate, and where was it being housed?
Well, at first it was being housed at our house in Rockingham.
But who was living there?
And when my mother was living there, and I was living there for a while, and of course when my mother died, Nuria came up before then, and everybody all our friends and relatives were happy to take my father's archives off our hands and deal with it as they thought it should be dealt. And Richard Hoffman was there, and Leonard Stein was there, and Rudy Kolish was there, and they were downstairs discussing this. We, in the meantime, decided that we were going to close it off, and we got this huge safe. We put everything in the safe. We locked off the room. They were very surprised and not very appreciative of what we were doing. And then from then on, we started, as we had before, as my mother had before, looking for a place to house the archives, not just to throw them there, but to have a real program that would follow it. And we went to a lot of places, looked at a lot of places.
What were some of the leading contenders?
Well, of course, UCLA. We always wanted UCLA. We always thought that eventually it would be UCLA, since my father had the teaching connection with UCLA, but they just never were that interested as we prodded them, and didn't work. Wait, excuse me a second.
Do you want to stop?
No, I just want to wipe my nose.
Oh, here, there was a Kleenex
Here,
right
I
there.
have here.
Okay. Sorry. I can cut that out, or I guess we'll leave it.
So
Wasn't there Michigan?
there was Michigan. There was I don't know if we went to Juilliard or something. Michigan. We had an arrangement with Michigan where we gave it to them. We were at the point of doing it, and the problem with Michigan was they said they needed, I think, 3 years or 5 years to see if they could raise the money for him. And it became known that we were going to give it to Michigan, and then USC came into the picture, USC in the name of in the name of Buglerian, Grant Buglerian, who was then the Dean of Arts and Letters at USC. And he offered us, I don't know what it was, a sum of money if we would just wait for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks it might have been, for him to see if he could raise money and interest in it. And we accepted that. I don't think we ever took the money or got the money, but we waited, and he came up with the program, which was a consortium from UCLA, USC, Cal State, and Cal Arts. And really, the way he worked it, he was a very clever person. The way it worked out was everybody else was giving and getting nothing except for USC. Not exactly, but USC was the main recipient, where everything would be housed and where all projects would take place. UCLA would contribute part of Leonard Stein's salary, and I guess he would teach partly at UCLA or something like that. Anyway, it didn't work out. It ended up USC taking the whole thing and doing the whole thing. And our contract with USC provided for a separate building. We wanted a very small building, and unfortunately it wasn't small enough because we knew that people tend to encroach, especially in gifts like this. They tend to mix. At first they like it, then they start wanting to put other things in with it. And so we tried to make sure that wouldn't happen by having a very clear contract with the right to transfer the archives if they violated the agreement. And I still remember we worked that all out and went to sign it. And then the lawyer there, their lawyer, can't remember what his name was now in the firm, he said, I can't allow them to sign this. They can't allow to a change of ownership if they don't to the contract, if they don't keep up to the terms of the contract. So I just stood up and I said, well, then we're going. And I didn't argue with them. And then, of course, they capitulated and said, okay. Well, I don't know of anything like that has happened with archives of this kind. And it turned out, because we also had in the contract a seemingly innocuous provision that said they were to have this board of advisors, which was actually a governing board, which had the power over the center, and it wasn't supposed to be under the music department anyway, which it was. And the music department needed to use it, of course, and they needed it to practice, and so they were always trying to get in there, and we were having big fights over that the whole time. But they also, as they were doing this, they also stopped holding meetings of the Board of Governors, and we would write them and say, you have to hold them, the contract says you have to, or it's a material breach. And they said, tough, we're not going to do it anymore. Even though they controlled the board, they had 5 people and we had 3 or something like that, or 6 and 3. And they could have said, okay, meeting of the Schoenberg Institute, and they said, we object to what you're doing. They said, overruled, we don't care, meeting adjourned. And they could have said they had a meeting, but they wanted to show their power. They said, we're not having meetings anymore. And we're just running it the way we want, and if you don't like it, tough. So we sued them. And one of my children, who was sitting opposite me, was the lawyer for that, as was Richard Mosk, and I think I helped some in the case. And we ended up, I think, getting more than we asked for. We got everything, although that was a very traumatic time, going through that law school, going through that trial. And we ended up settling it, and they took care of, they let us take care of the archives, prepare it for transfer, pay for the transfer, pay for the shipping. paid our legal fees. Austria did, but everything else they paid for.
Yeah. I think we have to stop now because the battery is going off, so I'm going to
Okay.
recharge our batteries and then maybe we'll reconvene a little bit and finish up later.